All right, welcome to today's really session here today. So I'm super excited to be interviewing Vic Sun and Ed Davis from OneLeg Marketing. Vic, Ed, make an intro. Tell us a little about yourselves here. Just give us a level overview of what OneLeg Marketing is, and then just even a little bit about your individual backgrounds here.
Go ahead, Ed.
Sure. So thanks for having us on, Sean. This is a great sort of follow up after we had you on the podcast and some of the conversations that we've had. So I'm Ed Davis. I handle operations here with OneLeg, which puts me into a variety of things on a day in, day out basis. And I never suffer for something to do. And about OneLeg, we were born in the pandemic. We've got 8-9 people on our team. Collectively, we've got about 100 years of marketing experience between all of us. We currently are focused primarily on the home improvement space, which is why we're here today. But we have other interests, of course. We like to talk about our business as being focused on the customer experience, which for us is sort of the synergy between marketing, technology, and creative. And we're really interested in delivering efficient marketing on behalf of our clients, and we've been quite successful at doing that in our first year and a half or so of operations.
Awesome.
Great, and I'm Vic Sun, and I'm the mastermind here at OneLeg, and like Ed was saying, I mirror that. We're a customer experience company, and really the way we tackle this is through typically two things: technology, which is where your efficiencies come from. There's a lot of inefficiencies there, and creativity, which is where your actual delivered content is becomes effective. So being effective and being efficient at the same time. And very happy to be here. Thank you for having us, Sean.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for joining us, joining me here. And yeah, just excited to run through here. So you guys did a podcast with Grosso University and kind of like really argued back and forth this like one call close. Is it dead and is it gone versus is it still alive and well? And all these companies are currently doing it successfully. So we're gonna, that obviously that's a kind of an overall brash title, is one call close dead. And I think we can all look at it and go, well, it's still working. Companies are still doing it today. So what I'd love to kind of dialogue with you today is just like, what is the one call close, and versus kind of what, let's kind of even recap some of that argument there. It's like versus where you see the industry going. So we all buy things, large purchases, even cars and houses on one visit. So like, it's not like it doesn't happen. But where do you see that the direction of marketing sales going? And let's jump out there. Either one of you guys can jump in and kind of answer that question.
Vic, why don't you give a quick recap of how that original debate got started and where it ended up, and I'll come in and talk about where we see the world going.
Yeah, it started. I was approached by Hatch, which is a texting platform, that's pretty popular within home improvement and remodeling, and we were brainstorming as to being one of the speakers in one of their panels or a podcast, and I had said, why don't we tackle this issue, because for years I've had to deal with this issue. I've learned how to deal with it. And it's this one call close philosophy, right? And a lot of people really, misconstrue, one call closing as, well, you need to have it because, well, how can you, if you don't do it, then how can you ask for your sale? Well, you can, because you are going to, like, you stretch your timelines and you say, well, this is a sale, right? And it doesn't always happen on the first visit. Most of them don't, because the question really becomes, if you are inherently you're a person who likes the one call close, all you got to do is look at the data. If your company runs 10 appointments, right, or a salesperson runs 10 appointments, how many of those 10 appointments really close in the first visit? Well, it's 1 or 2 across the nation, right? So overwhelming majority of your blue ocean doesn't close in the first visit. Some of them do eventually close. And I think that that's where customer experience, and the focus on, on closing as opposed to the customer experience and the journey, right, becomes problematic for most home improvement companies. And so that conversation turned into, let's go ahead and find somebody who is willing to step up. And obviously, the Grosso guys came in. That's their shtick, right? The one
Yep.
call close. And for me, I think that a lot of companies who try to defend this particular philosophy, as opposed to listening and saying, I'm not at 100% close. I'm not even at a 50% net close. And I'm running so many appointments and leads and generating all of these, and I'm not closing them on the first visit. It might be a good idea to start asking yourself, is the one cold close really the thing you should be defending? Or should you be looking at all the other elements that could help you close more and generate more revenue, right? Without it hurting your existing, you know, um, need to defend this particular philosophy. Because I'm not saying don't ask for the sale. Everyone has to ask for the sale. I'm just saying, look at the data and accept the fact that your blue ocean is all those ones that you don't sell on the first visit and how you eventually will sell them. And here are those particular elements.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a big issue in this industry because if you have sales managers, VPs, and CEOs who want to defend the philosophy as opposed to, just, you know, uh, kind of getting the ego out of the way and focusing on all the other elements, you get more stuff done.
Well, and I think to add to that, right, one of the things that got covered in that session was where that philosophy, where that approach was born, and to Vic's great credit, we did some research, and the one call close was born of the traveling salesperson, right? And so you really didn't have a choice. You went town to town, you had your goods and services or whatever it was in the back of your car, and you stood at that doorway until the homeowner said yes. But I think, Sean, you talk about, people can nowadays, you can buy a home online, you can buy a car online, and you never have to step foot or deal with the salesperson and whatnot. And you can do those transactions in a very short, truncated period of time. But the reality is, and if you really think about how you are as an individual from a consumer standpoint, the vast majority of us are very uncomfortable with being forced into a decision, right? We want to take our time. We want to consider what our options are. And what I don't think a lot of people within the home improvement industry take into account is, what are all the other inputs that people are looking at before they even have a conversation with you, right? And so, it's the reviews. People are going on Facebook, they're doing Google searches, they're talking to their neighbors, right? They're looking at, it can be as subtle as, a poster on the fence of the Little League field at your neighborhood park. It's all these things that actually add up in terms of driving awareness, and I'm sure we'll get into some of those things. But I think in the future, and what we are seeing with a number of our clients, don't get us wrong, we still have clients who subscribe to that philosophy, right? They canvas somebody, then they schedule an appointment, and it sort of grates on us a little bit because it's not how we see the world moving. But we also have clients who absolutely understand the relationship model and how, somebody may just call me for a bit of advice, and they might not even want anything or a quote or anything like that for a month, 6 months, 2 years, but I'm serving as a resource to them, and I'm developing this relationship, and that is in and of itself going to pay dividends. Because I think the other thing that I perpetually have a problem with is when you have this one call close philosophy or this mindset, but when you have that philosophy, you set your business up as a transaction, right? And so you're constantly having to churn through business and leads, and that it's a cycle. But our clients who we see who have this relationship model, you can't necessarily be predictive about what your business is going to be from that, but at least you have these solid relationships, and you have the confidence that, okay, well, Mary had a remodel job, and we redid her bath, and she talked to us about her deck, and maybe we can't do that, but we make a refer, but we've got this and you don't just do one job for that client. You do a whole host of jobs, or you're in contact with them about a whole host of things over the course of a number of years. And that, I think, is more sustainable to a business.
Even writing off what you just said is like, I'm hearing you say that obviously it's a customer journey. It's, the companies who not only can take a lead, and in the traditional sales, one call close is the sales reps hold all the information. So you're kind of, even in the call centers are very much geared towards, the sales rep will answer that question for you. You're trying to push the value of the visit to the sales rep, which a lot of homeowners just want information today. They want it as fast as they can. And if you can become that expert in sharing that information, even when homeowners aren't ready to make the decision all the way to go to an estimate to schedule a date and time of an appointment, is how do you build that value on the front end, and continue to share value of your company and provide solutions that don't necessarily end up in a sales appointment immediately. And then looking at it from a longer term picture of what about those leads that didn't convert into an appointment or didn't want to move forward. From what you were sharing, like how do you nurture those with quality information, quality content, as you guys have talked about in previous meetings with you all, that just kind of builds the value of that, of the customers who don't want to book an appointment right now. You could just provide them information that still maintains you as an expert and kind of broaden that scope out there, that the sales rep doesn't have all the answers. How do you get them to a sales rep when they're ready to purchase, and educate them as much as you can out of that? You can still close that day of the appointment, that one call close. But how do you actually support your sales reps so that there's already inherent value in you as a company, and of just knowledge that you have provided that homeowner as well. So I think that's great. So just hitting on this too, one thing that I like in your website that you guys have said, maybe you can speak more to this, is this zero marketing waste. So speak a little bit to that here, Vic, and tell me, where did that come from? And kind of, you've kind of talked about that from like a branding holistic perspective versus just this very, very transactional, as you kind of mentioned here, Ed, as well.
Yeah, I think it's really born out of this whole idea that the home improvement space, it's all lead generation, and people, like you asked, like, well, what, there are a lot of questions there, like, well, how do you start creating quality content? Well, it starts with intent on your side just as much as it does on the user. If your intent is to generate leads, and all your behavior and your actions will be led to that. You buy a lot of leads, you don't care the quality, so you're really looking just for curious leads. You're not looking for serious buyers, right? The curious versus the serious. And this is inherently, again, a mindset issue and an ideology that, to be very frank, if you're in that mindset and you're thinking, well, I'll go in and try to figure out what I can do to enhance so that I can get one more lead, then one, you'll never work with a company like us. Two, whatever you do will reap you the same things that you're doing now. Okay, so part of that is, when you create this mindset within your organization, this culture where I've got to get them 10 appointments a week, 12 appointments a week, they've got to work Monday through Saturday or even Sundays, and I want my salespeople running as many leads as possible. All your behavior will, and the creative and the content, all you do will be driven towards generating names and numbers, not sales. Okay, so the first thing you need to do, what do you need to do? You need to go and change your mindset. You need to start moving in the direction of, I can't deal with this because everybody in my organization is built this way. Maybe I need help. And this is where you bring in other people, or you start, figuring out how you can make that switch. Two, with regards to this whole, once you've made that decision, you now understand that you're going to be helping your salespeople actually make more sales, because the things you're going to do is going to enhance their ability to actually ask for the sale and be more successful in that first visit. And if, just like the questionnaire, a rehash program, you'll find that your rehash program is not going to be as needed, right? Because it's going to be organically built into your process, into your user journey, right? This very singular kind of transactional way of thinking of it. Let me set the appointment. Let me confirm it. Let me go and run it. If I don't sell it, let me go rehash it. This is because you're still looking at it from a lead generation / one call close. Whereas if you looked at it from a journey and you personalize that from your users, because you can, you'll stop looking at things in funnels. You stop looking at things from these phases, and you look at things from a journey, and you're saying it's gonna be a sale. Eventually, here's where I can go and start adjusting, so get closer and closer and less
Mhm.
and less of the follow-ups. But I think that we can talk all day long, and I'm sure Ed will elaborate about these things, reviews, emotional, compelling, creative videos that we can do for you. We coming in and working your technology with lead scoring, your CRM, your text messages, your emails, and everything. But none of that matters, okay, if your main goal is to generate just one more lead. Okay, so if that's your
Well,
goal, you can't get more sales. You're just going to get more leads.
well, and so Vic, and Ed, maybe you guys can give us some tactical, like what have companies done? Because obviously you need curiosity to get the customer to inquire. Need, interest, or desire is
Sure.
necessary to get leads in the door, right? So if you've got a lead in the door and you're starting them on a customer journey on that side of things, what you mentioned, providing them video and creatives that are actually, emotionally compelling on that side of things. What does that customer journey look like? Kind of what are tactical kind of things that somebody could insert into prior to setting an appointment? Or if they don't set an appointment or they can't get a hold of that person, or even if they sent an estimator out there and then they didn't close, that rehash, how do you enhance the current journey that a customer is on right now, or homeowner is on, with content or whatever? What does that look like from just an enhancement of current process that you guys have seen, kind of like plugging those things in there, and what has worked to kind of help in that journey?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that Vic said, which is key, is there's a mind shift that has to occur, right? And so, one of the things that we see what our clients do is some of them they're sort of addicted to the lead generation sort of habitual thing that goes on in this industry, but if they've reached out to us, they're open to conversation. And so probably the very first conversation that we would have, short of technology and all of that kind of stuff, is, well, let's look at just doing some brand awareness ads. Brand awareness, why would I want to run an ad with my logo on it? Well, that's not really what a brand awareness ad is. But what we talk about is literally running ads that don't actually have a call to action, right? Or the call to action may just be, follow us on Facebook or visit our website, right? We're not trying to drive somebody into a sales funnel with the specific purpose of getting a salesperson on the phone with them or in front of them.
Yeah.
That is a foreign concept in this industry, but it is an important, really sort of a critical first step, because what we see the brand awareness thing being is it sort of solves two things tactically. Number one, it helps on the awareness thing, and there's tons of studies within marketing and advertising that the brands that win a sale are 90% of the 90+% of the time it's one of the first two or three that a consumer is able to recall, right? So if you look through a sales funnel, if you're buying a car, you immediately think of two or three brands. And as you start evaluating, you might bring in other brands and whatnot, but at the end of the day, 90+% of the time, it was one of those two or three that you originally thought of that's going to win out. So, what you want to do is you want to create fame, you want to create visibility, you want to create awareness, and you want to be as many places as your budget will allow. And then the other thing that we see people do quite often that isn't overly resource intensive, isn't overly financially, it's not a huge financial commitment, is how are they leveraging their online presence. Now, there are, and I'm shocked at this because home improvement is not the industry that I grew up in, but there are predators within this industry from a marketing standpoint, right? And essentially what they do is they go on to, these small home improvement companies, and we can build your website, and we can do your SEO, and we can do this, and it's $1,000 a month, and that may work for somebody that, and I'm not knocking the fact that you're trying to get as much as you can for as little investment as possible, but what we have found is your website, if you put it next to somebody, the plumber the next town over and the roofer the next state over, there's a lot of similarities. And your article that's on your blog, I promise you that article is being used for like 15 other companies.
I gotta laugh about this because they're not similarities. They look the same.
Yeah. No, they are the same. Sorry,
they just have a different color. But
that's right.
They
I was
look
being generous.
the same. Okay, you cannot tell your website from 15 other templated websites that was sold to you for $500 a month or $1,000 a month. And the reality is now you're going and thinking to yourself, I've got 10 appointments and 30%, I'll go and try to target 30% close. And you're trying to across of it. And you're wondering, why isn't 70% not closing? And why are they still getting other bids and whatever? Because you look the same as everybody else. There's no differentiation, like your salesperson's going to a home and the homeowner's thinking, I don't even know your name. Just give me a price. And I've got 2 other people coming over sometime in the next 2 weeks, and I'm going to think about it. And whoever I think about last, in a very salient and positive way, is getting my business. Yep. And so that part right there, we just got to say it how it is, man. It's like, everything's the same that you're doing with everybody else. And so, don't worry about it.
And my point was going to be is sort of the low cost way of doing that is, what are you actually doing on your own to generate little bits of content? And it doesn't have to be, 5-minute videos or anything like that and whatnot, but it's just simple things like just having a consistent presence on social media, right? Because those things are searchable and people will go look for you in Facebook and Instagram, and just constantly putting your own, the other big thing, is to curate your reviews. I am flabbergasted at how often companies they're not asking the customer for the actual review and asking for that customer to actually do it in multiple venues, right? It's more than just Google nowadays, right? Google is scrubbing Yelp, they're scrubbing Houzz, they're scrubbing Angie's List. And because of that, they're looking for similar reviews across multiple platforms, and they're giving you additional authority based on that. And so you really have to think about, how are you, not incentivizing isn't the right word, but how are you, building the relationship so that you feel confident in going to your customer and saying, really happy we could do this job for you. Would you mind doing this review for us in Google, Yelp, and here? Right. Yeah. And it's those real simple things that add up.
Oh, absolutely. So and I'm kind of hearing you guys say that obviously just a unique web presence and a unique brand that's out there that is more trusted or more known in the space, and that has authority to it, that people think
Correct.
about when making a decision. So if you're boiling it down to you and other competitors that are all similar, now it's up to the sales rep to convince them to close the deal, right? That's the one call close. It's like, we got to close you now or we're going to lose you, because there really hasn't been any brand equity there. You don't have the confidence that they're going to come back to you because you are the best in town, and that side of things. Branding in these processes of like creating relationships and this customer journey is less quantifiable. So that is like, the one call close is predictable and quantifiable. I know that I have a 30% set rate in my, to an appointment, and a 85% issued rate, and all the way down to, of the demoed appointments, I'm going to close 30 or 40% of them. That's all quantifiable. That's how CRMs in this industry are built, right? So talking to that a little bit here of, Ed, you alluded to it a little bit, is this budget for, like, this is kind of above and beyond like the lead generation marketing, like in the funnel, quantifiable metrics, output, here's the dollar amounts on that side of things, versus like, is that a branding budget who says, we're just going to spend $3,000 on budget on marketing a month, on branding a month, and advertising, that we have no quantifiable metrics down funnel that I can tie it to, and we're going to hope and pray it goes there? Or
not at all. Not at all. See, this attribution model is broken, and it's terrible in the fact that most people don't have, like, sure, you don't need to have a degree to understand it, but most people, when you really get into it, they don't understand it, right? So they go and say, well, if I spend, right, $1,000, let me put it to you this way. I'm going to put, here's a strategy for one quote close with attribution and lead gen. I'm going to put $10,000 a year on training my salespeople to one call close, but I won't spend a dime, right, on my website to make it look different, so that it doesn't look like the 12 other websites that offer the same product across the state or across the country. 2, you start going, I'm going to train my salesperson to be the end all, it starts with them and it ends with them on that visit, to be able to educate the person. So I'm going to put a lot of money into the salesperson's training, and yet I won't put out content in terms of educating the consumer so that they can go and make the best decision without being sold. So let me give you a perfect example. In my last position as an executive, one of the things that we had in part of our marketing campaign was a seminar. And the seminar wasn't about go and buy from us, and here's why. It was, how do you choose a contractor, and what can you expect from the competition? Now, people might go like, you're going to feed these people, you're going to have a seminar, and 200-300 people would attend, right? And this was, in a showroom, in one of our showrooms, and we would have gifts, we would have swag, we would have vendors, we would have competitors in there, like an event. And you think, like, hold on a minute, you're going to educate the consumer on how to choose a contractor and all the things that you should look for. What if they go to a different, contractor? Great, because that's what people want. They want to be able to make the decision on their own. Now, guess what's happened, right? The people who attend the seminar, they see that, they get primed. They go, oh, these people are the experts. If they're educating me and 199 more homeowners on how to choose a contractor, they must be a good company, right? They must be able to hold this event, right? And there's other people here like me and their competitors. This is the problem that I see is with the attribution, is like, well, what if I can't get one more lead? Again, I'm going to keep returning to this, and I can't go and attribute that $1 that I spent to a lead.
Vic's located in California. We may have just had a fire or natural disaster or earthquake. I certainly hope not. No, but I'm not real sure what just happened there. He was on a roll.
We lost you there, Ed. Well, and I think that's a great points here, just to kind of process through, is, having alternative ways to educate the customer. I was actually reading an article this morning, was talking about, like, you should bring up your competition as much as possible, in the sales presentation, in your marketing, because especially in the home improvement space, where you're not differentiating that much from one window to another, or one bath insert to another. It's just like, bring up if you're able to, in your marketing and your branding and your content, like, bring up the differences between what you offer and other companies offer. And not in a negative, slandering way of like, we're better priced. Right. Like, if you have
nobody wants to hear that part.
No, if you're just honest about the options, like content today, like, people see through the if it's slanted one direction or another. But if you are the source of resource of content out there, whether it's in your marketing or your sales or anything that helps, it's just you're the education, and then you are the solution that is, you believe that is the best suited for this as well. So I think that is really good to kind of look at it from, you don't have to change your current customer journey, you can enhance it, so that your sales rep doesn't have to, you know, a lot of sales reps in the one call close have the competitors, you know, pricing and all that kind of stuff there at the one call close to try to make that sale. How do you bring even some of the sales reps one call close content? You know, you don't have to create something amazing. It's just creating something and
Yeah,
being
and
out there.
I think where Vic would have gone had we not lost him. Look, the companion to quantifiable information is qualifiable, right? Quality information. And so the way that I like to talk about it is you actually still have metrics that you're going to want to look at, right? And that are still going to reinforce, hey, this brand journey stuff, which I'm scared of, and in home improvement, I don't understand, I don't want to talk about. There's actual metrics that you can actually look at, right? And so what you're going to want to do is, but these are more longitudinal, right? Your quantifiable metrics from a one call close mindset, they're weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, right? But when we start talking about brand and journey and all that kind of stuff, and how are we building our awareness, we start talking about it in terms of quarters, years, 5 year, 10 years. And some of the things that you're going to look at, and you'll know that your work is that your awareness, that element of your marketing is working, is number one, your culture will have changed. And how do I measure that? I'll give you an example. If you go and look at the vast majority of reviews in home improvement, the biggest detractor or the biggest thing that has a negative impact on a homeowner's review of your company or your service or your product is what? Salespeople, right? But these are the people who we entrust to with the relationship. And so, as Vic was sort of alluding to, you sort of have to retrain them. You don't have to change them. You don't have to sit there and say no more one call close. Hey, here's how you be more helpful. And when you start to do that, when your salespeople start to become relationship people, when they start to become advice people, you'll start to notice that your reviews will tick up. And we see that with our clients. We've had one client who, when we started working with them back in May, on average, the review that they would get was like a 3.7, a 3.8. And they agreed essentially to do a bit of an experiment where we would do brand posts, we would do some brand content and stuff like that. And we worked with them in some in more of an appreciative inquiry way when somebody called into their call center. And then what we noticed when we went back and measured it after they'd been doing that for 3 months, the contractors hadn't changed, the product hadn't changed, the service, none of that changed. The only thing that really had changed was some of the ads that we were putting in the marketplace and how the contact center was speaking to the prospects. And on average, the review went up to 4.2. Yeah. Right. So it's incremental. But these things start to become additive and they compound upon themselves. And so you can quantify it and you can see how it impacts your business. So I would, at some point, I'm pretty sure we're going to have a podcast on OneLeg or a blog content on that case study in particular. Mm-hmm. And that might enlighten one of the attendees' questions.
Yeah, no, I think this is great. I think so. The one thing we've noticed as well as we've gone to this revenue share model and a lead generation perspective is that, the companies who have been in business in the Northeast for 50, 60 some years and have thousands of successful, completions and really good reviews online is like they do have a better close rate on leads that we send them. Because they have a brand, they are that notable company in the market. Their brand is well known. They do a lot of other advertising and marketing and a lot of stuff to support it. So
they're in the community.
They're in the community. They've done a lot of that overall support already. So they've and I think that's one thing to kind of keep in mind is in most markets there is not a market leader. When you think about, we're in the industry, so all of us are in it on a daily basis. So we think our company is doing really well, but I think it's a great just to survey your market and who do you think of when it comes to roofing, or who do you think of when it comes to windows or bathroom remodeling or whatever space you are in. Like you can do those surveys and very broadly, just to try to get who is the sentiment of who they actually think about when it comes to windows or roofing or all that kind of stuff. I think I look at like in the Twin Cities market, Window World had a campaign. They were spending 10 million, over $1 million a year on just billboards and radio and all that kind of stuff. They've stopped doing it, for full disclosure. So I don't know how well it turned out from them on a revenue standpoint, but everyone was, you could say their name, the billboards are there. And that branding campaign created a lot of, intrigue and a lot of, expertise in a space that no one else was doing. So those enhancements to your current campaigns, they may not be as quantifiable, because when they visit your website, did they see the billboard or did they call you off that? That's harder to manage. But the branding, how do you look at those lifts over a period of time, is what I'm kind of hearing you say.
Yeah,
here as well.
That's right.
So I think that makes total sense. So one thing you kind of touched on here was just, I'd be curious, knowing there's a lot of marketing managers on the call today here, is there anything, and you mentioned this helpfulness aspect of it. So call centers have changed dramatically. People don't answer the phone for somebody as much anymore. And even when they do, it's, that's your beginning of your relationship with a customer. So talking about it from a journey aspect of things, is there any like tips or just even quick little tips that you can say from like creating a customer journey, starting with that initial phone call, in that kind of essence of being helpful on that side of things?
Well, I think the thing that you're going to see moving forward actually is, and we're going to be talking more about this next year. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but call centers are going to go away as well. I think not immediately, but within the next 3 or 4 years, I think you're going to start to see some significant shifts in the industry when it comes to call centers, for a number of reasons, most of which there's actually some legislation making its way through Congress right now that's going to limit the ability of call centers to make tons and tons of phone calls. But what I would imagine a lot of the marketing managers, the owners on this call, see exactly what you sort of prefaced is, well, people don't answer our phones. When we call, they don't actually answer the phone. Even if they filled out a form, right? They've come to your website, they filled out a form. And I think what you need to take from that is, that's probably not the real way in which somebody wants to be communicated with, because, and one of the things we talk about with our clients is, historically, you've wanted to be in control of the conversation, right? The one call close mindset. I'm in there, I'm driving the conversation, I'm guiding it. But again, customers they at least want to feel like they are in control of the conversation, that they're in control of the engagement. And so this is where things like texting, where things like social media messaging, where chatbots, and if you don't have a chatbot, I mean like a real chatbot, not like, there's a lot of really poorly implemented chatbots out there. But if you don't have something that can legitimately answer some of the basic questions that a customer might have, you're doing your business a huge disservice. Because what we see is, sorry, go ahead, Vic.
Yes. So for the chatbots, and for these particulars, I've built so many call centers throughout the years, and even with us now, we work with some of the largest call centers in the country: Triton, Valor, Plus One is a recent one company, Next Rep, right? So I mean, combined, there's probably about 1,000 agents between those large call centers, and they're subcontracted by companies, right? Whether it's in manufacturing, home improvement. It will boil down to the text messaging, the emails, the live chat, and the chat bots, right? But it's really you being able to go and curate that on the user journey. There was a question on that, well, how do you get that to the journey without the attribution, and how do you hit the goals? Well, again, focus on the customer experience, right? If your text messages are basically just notifications on the beginning, and you're not front loading that with GIF images, and links to places where they can view a video, and we do a lot of that. We have a partnership with Lead Perfection in which we automate those things, and there are GIF images, videos, and landing pages that we build. But by the time you see it, it's like, wow, I really like this. Let me click on it. It's pretty interesting, right? A moving image within your text. You click on the link, it takes you to a place where it's not trying to sell you, and there's a nice quick 15-30 second video either educating you or providing you with some insight as to what you can expect. Then you go into the emails, and it's weird, I think it's pretty premature, but just to give you guys some insight, we're the first in the country. OneLeg, our company, is the first to implement and have .ics's on emails if you're a Lead Perfection user, for example, right? So what that means is that when we send emails to people with their appointments and everything, it actually it recognizes whatever mobile device you have, whether you're an Android user or an iPhone user, Apple user, iOS, and it automatically pops it in your native calendar. We're the first to do that. These are small little things that create happiness in the user journey that actually end up having you close more, right? Because you have those pieces of technology that are geared towards the customer experience. And of course, with the call centers, with Five9, for those of you guys who have large call centers, if you do not have an IVA, an interactive, virtual assistant, that's either agent assistance, which is helping your agents because there's a transcript and the AI is now delivering to your agents what it is that the client is saying, and as well as what you should be saying, then you're probably going to be left in the dust, because many of these call centers now have realized, I can't keep hiring people. People don't want to work these positions. It's getting harder to find them. I might as well provide technology that helps upskill, right, these particular low-skilled workers, as well as making their jobs so much more successful, because the AI, the IVA, is not either doing self-service for those simple ones, like setting an appointment, verifying the appointment, confirming it. I would say a human probably still, just to make sure, deliver that. But then the IVA kicks in to enhance and augment what your agents are doing. So again, if your model is, let me hire a bunch of people, train them with sales techniques and those sort of things, well, again, that's like the 2011 model, right? In 2021 and beyond, you've got to do things that you have not done. And the biggest challenge for the people on the chat who's been asking, well, how do I do this? What do I do that? Is this. How do you go and tell yourself, I've never succeeded doing this before. I've never done it. Okay. And I'm used to attribution. I'm used to lead generation. I'm used to the things that I'm doing now. I want to do, something different. Well, how are you going to do that if you keep doing the same things that everybody else is doing? Groupthink, right? Yep. A lot of owners do that. They call other owners and they say, hey, what are you doing? And then they go, oh, let me go and hire that vendor who's been doing the same things that he's been doing for 15 other people. So I think that's where the challenge is going to be for a lot of these companies.
Yeah, no, I think this is great. And maybe we should do another webinar here just on call centers and agent assist side of things here too. We've got a couple webinars coming up on kind of call center training with Andy Garcia. He's going to join us in a couple weeks here, but and we're going to interview some extra call center tech here too with Five9 and Call Tools. So and maybe inviting you guys into that conversation. But that is the future of call centers. My background is actually back in call center technology here too, kind of more antiquated to today's standards. But I think, Vic, you're right. Is that call centers? It's a low skill position. Obviously, the pandemic's thrown wrenches into that here of like, now dispersed call centers, all that side of things adds to another layer of it, which is a good and a bad thing. On that side of things, is some of you guys are running pretty large call centers on the call here as well. But I think that is the future of how do you enhance and use some of this AI stuff to really get things off the ground. So with all that said, here is how can people kind of reach out to you, Vic and Ed? How can they get in touch with you the best way possible to kind of, if they have further questions about the call center, optimization, or the kind of marketing branding side of things here as well that we've kind of talked about here today? How can they can they reach out to you guys and initiate a conversation?
Sure. Thank you for that. Easy enough. It's zeromarketingwaste.com is the website. And there's, as you can imagine, there's the appropriate ways to get in contact with us. If you'd like to do it directly, you can email Vic at vic at OneLeg.co, no M at the end of that. So Vic at OneLeg.co. Really simple.
Yeah,
and if you want to, shameless plug, but Sean, you've been on the podcast. If you want to hear more of our views, or if you want to, listen to them and then say, what do they know? We've got our great podcast, One Leg Up. You can find that anywhere that you listen to podcasts. You can even shout it into Alexa and she'll play the last episode.
Yeah,
awesome.
and for those people who are into technology, and it's interesting you mentioned Five9. We're also an official partner of Five9 for implementation. But we have a podcast series which is separate from the One Leg Up called Tech Squawk. We're like 7 episodes deep, and we discuss Leap Perfection for the most part in Five9. But we also been discussing things like Leap and Hatch and some of the technology pieces, how to just make that more efficient and effective for companies. A lot of the successful companies now aren't even worried about leads. I'm happy to say some of them are our clients, obviously, and they're more concerned now about fulfillment, right? How do you install? There's a supply chain issue across the country, and we've been automating a lot of the back end of their CRMs, like Leap Perfection, the ERP side, to help them, install faster, provide better experiences to people, especially when you got long wait times. Again, very focused on customer experience. And you asked, like, how do you hit us up? Like, I get people all the time hitting me up on LinkedIn. Just connect with me on LinkedIn, ask me a question. I usually get back to people within 24 hours. And again, I think you don't need to necessarily schedule an appointment. Just connect with me on LinkedIn or Ed, or with Sean, and we're happy. We're always on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
I think. So.
Just about awesome. Well, thank you, Vic. Thank you, Ed, for your time today. Thank you for everybody jumping on here and asking questions as we went along here. But hope you all have a fantastic rest of the day.
Thanks for having us on, Sean.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.